What if everything you knew about reality was running in the wrong direction? What if the ticking clock above your head wasn't counting time forward, but draining it backward like a film rewinding, slowly pulling your soul back into silence? Tonight, we're going to do something dangerous. We're going to peel back the illusion that time is linear. We'll dive into a realm where entropy collapses, where cause follows effect in reverse, where your greatest memories haven't happened yet, and your deepest regrets are still waiting to be born. You'll walk through a mirror, but on the other side, your reflection won't follow. You'll see stars that are unborn, cities that unbuild, and lovers who say goodbye before they ever meet. This is not science fiction. This is a real thought experiment that physicists, philosophers, and dreamers alike have feared to speak aloud. What if time could flow backwards? Let go of the clock. Step outside the cage of calendars and get ready to drift through the forgotten corridors of reversed reality. This is Mind Scramble, and tonight we're going to turn time inside out. You never noticed the flow because you were born inside it. Time. It cradles you from the first breath to the last, dragging you from cradle to grave, from innocence to complexity, from hello to goodbye. But here's the paradox. You've never actually seen time. You've only ever seen change, and you assumed, because we all did, that change must mean movement. That movement must have a direction. That direction must be real. But what if it's not? Let me walk you through a day that never happened, or maybe it did. But in reverse, you wake up. But this time, you don't open your eyes. You close them. Your alarm unrings itself, folding the sound back into silence. The warmth leaves your skin as your blanket pulls itself over you again. The sunlight recedes from the wall, slinking away like a ghost that remembered its place in the dark. And you're not rising. You're sinking. Into bed, into time. Backward. You go to the mirror. Your face smooths. The tiredness lifts. Not because you're rested, but because you haven't lived the fatigue yet. You spit toothpaste into your mouth. Your brush rewinds its strokes. You're not cleaning your teeth. You're uncleaning them. Returning food to your mouth. Returning breakfast to the fridge. You don't eat. You uneat. You don't speak. You unspeak. Your words fold themselves back into your lungs, unheard, unspoken, unknown. And through it all, you feel normal. Because time still feels like it's moving forward. But it's not. Not anymore. You see, there's something no one tells you as you grow up. Your entire sense of time, your confidence that the past is behind and the future is ahead, is a trick. A brilliant, evolutionary trick. Because time doesn't have an arrow. Not really. There's no sign in the universe that says this way forward. No cosmic rule etched into the stars that says you must go from young to old, from order to chaos, from birth to death. That's just how you experience it. But what if that experience is wrong? Let's get technical for a moment. But I promise, we'll stay dreamy. In physics, the equations that govern motion, Newton's laws, Einstein's relativity, even the bizarre playground of quantum mechanics, are time-symmetric. Meaning, they don't care if time goes forward or backward. If I throw a ball up and then play that motion in reverse, the math works exactly the same. The world should be reversible. But then why isn't it? Why can't you uncrack an egg? Why can't smoke unfloat back into a cigarette? Why can't life reverse? Enter entropy. Entropy is the universe's way of saying, I prefer chaos. It's the reason your room gets messy over time. It's the reason your hot coffee gets cold, not hotter. It's the reason your body ages. Entropy is the only thing in science that gives time a direction. The only thing that says, we're moving forward. But even entropy is a statistical trend, not a law. It's probable that your coffee cools down, but it's not impossible that it randomly heats up. It's just so unlikely the universe doesn't bother trying. And here's the kicker. At the level of particles, atoms, and quanta, there is no arrow. Things just happen. Forward, backward, it doesn't matter. Time's arrow only appears when you zoom out far enough, like seeing a current in a river. But maybe that river isn't flowing one way. Maybe it's circling. Maybe you're stuck on a whirlpool that feels like progress but is really a loop. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever had a moment where time slowed down? Where everything felt stretched, disconnected from the ticking of clocks? A car crash, a kiss, a dream. What if those moments are glimpses beyond the illusion? Moments where time loses its grip, because it was never holding you in the first place. You were just floating, and the current was something you invented to feel safe. Let's step deeper. What if time is not real at all? Some physicists, like Julian Barber, believe that time is an illusion, that all moments, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously, like frames of a movie reel. You're not moving through time. You're experiencing slices of reality that already exist, one after the other. But your mind, your story, paints the illusion of movement, like a flipbook, like a dream. So what happens if you flip the book in reverse? Think about memory. You remember the past, not the future. But why? Is it because the future hasn't happened, or because you haven't stored it yet? Some thinkers suggest that your brain creates the illusion of time because of memory, that the only reason you think the past is behind is because you remember it. But what if we could remember the future? Would time feel backward? Would you still believe the past was real? Would you trust your own story? Now we get personal. Time isn't just a physical phenomenon. It's emotional, spiritual. It defines who you are, your regrets, your hopes, your guilt, your love, all of it, built on the assumption that time is flowing one way. If that collapsed, if you woke up tomorrow and time began moving backward, you'd start unfeeling your pain, undoing your triumphs, unloving the ones you cherished. Would that still be you, or would you unravel into a stranger? The truth is, you never noticed the flow, because you were the flow. You are not a person in time. You are a function of time. Candle flame flickering in the dark, not moving forward, but changing shape as it burns. What if the flame burned backward? What if you were the smoke returning to the wick? And here's the mind scrambler. What if you already are? What if time is flowing backward right now, but your memory works in reverse too, tricking you into thinking it's forward? How would, you wouldn't, because every thought, every emotion, every decision would feel exactly the same. You'd believe you're moving into the future, when in truth, you're unraveling. Time is a language you were taught to speak, but maybe there's a dialect you forgot. A reversed grammar, a backward rhythm, a heartbeat that goes tick, 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 backwards. You never noticed the flow, because the flow was never there. Only you were, floating, waiting, remembering the future. It starts with a whisper you can't hear, a quiet folding of order into disorder. A card shuffled, a mirror cracked, a child's room slowly overtaken by forgotten toys and dust. Entropy, the universe's favorite law, not because it is loud, not because it's violent, but because it never loses. It doesn't scream. It just takes, bit by bit, memory by memory, structure by structure. And you, whether you like it or not, are one of its victims. So what is entropy, really? You've heard the word before. Maybe in science class, maybe from a podcast, maybe from a late-night philosophical debate where someone tried to sound clever. But I want you to forget all that. Forget thermodynamics. Forget jargon. Forget formulas. Let me show you entropy as a living thing. Picture this: a sand castle, perfectly sculpted on the edge of the beach. Towers, bridges, tiny windows carved with a stick. Now imagine the tide. The first wave kisses the base. The second eats away at a wall. The third collapses the central tower. You don't have to do anything. Just wait, and the castle returns to the sand it came from. That is entropy, the slow, inevitable decay of structure into chaos. Now imagine that castle is you, your body, your memory, your relationships, your sense of self, and the tide, that's time, wearing you down, softening the edges, turning the sculpture back into dust. You think you're living a story, but you're really a sculpture being washed away. Entropy doesn't destroy you with fire. It forgets you, unbuilds you, until one day, nothing you touched remains intact. That's the game. But wait, why is entropy the only thing in the universe that seems to care about time's direction? Why does a broken glass stay broken? Why do corpses not come back to life? Why does heat flow from hot to cold and never the other way? It's not the laws of motion. Newton didn't say, move only, forward. Einstein didn't ban backward time. Quantum mechanics doesn't play favorites. So why does entropy get to decide? Because entropy is a tyrant dressed as a statistic. Let me explain. At its core, entropy is just probability. Let's say you have 1,000 red marbles in a bowl. That's order. A very specific, very low entropy state. Now imagine shaking the bowl. 1. Marble changes color. Then 10. Then 100. Soon you have a random mix of red, blue, green, yellow. That's disorder, a high entropy state. Why did that happen? Because there are trillions of possible messy combinations, and only one perfectly ordered one. Entropy doesn't care about morals, it cares about math. But here's where it gets wild. Nothing in the laws of physics forbids the marbles from reordering themselves. They could, by sheer luck, all turn red again. It's just almost infinitely unlikely. So unlikely it might never happen even once in the lifetime of the universe. But not impossible. That's the secret the universe doesn't want you to know. So when we say time moves forward, what we really mean is we started in a very, very low entropy state, and now we're falling into chaos. But what if we started in a high entropy state instead? What if the universe began in disorder, and entropy had nowhere to go? Would time still move forward, or would it stop, or worse, would it turn around? Here's the terrifying possibility. Entropy is not a law, it's a condition. It only appears to rule because we're inside a system that started with order. But if that starting condition had been different, then everything we believe about time, life, and memory would collapse. Your past? Gone. Your future? Already happened. You'd be a passenger on a train that doesn't move. Just flashes of scenery, moments, snapshots, no direction, no flow, just entropy. Frozen. And now comes the question that scientists fear more than any other. Why? Did the universe start in such a low entropy state? It shouldn't have. It's the most improbable thing ever. It's like finding all the air in your room huddled into one corner. Like dropping puzzle pieces on the floor and they land assembled. Some physicists say it's a mystery we'll never solve. Others suggest it's evidence of a multiverse where infinite chaotic universes exist and we just live in the lucky one. But there's a darker theory. What if entropy is flowing backward? What if we're just imagining the direction? Let's go deeper. There are models in cosmology where time splits, where after the Big Bang, entropy starts increasing in both directions. Two universes, one flowing forward, one flowing backward, and we, consciousness, memory, identity, we only exist in the direction where entropy increases. That means time is not a flow. It's a perception tied to entropy. No entropy, no time. Just frozen particles. A still life. Think of a movie reel. Each frame is a universe. No motion, no time. Just a slice. When you play the reel, your mind sees movement. But the frames don't change. You do. Entropy is the hand that turns the reel. Now here's where it gets personal. You are made of entropy. Your body is a temporary rebellion against chaos. Cells organizing, thoughts connecting, heartbeats pumping. But every second, your body loses the fight. Skin wrinkles, bones weaken, memories fade. You don't age because time moves forward. You age because entropy wins, and one day, it wins completely. But what if you could reverse entropy? What if we could trap time's arrow and bend it the other way? Some researchers are already trying. They've built microscopic systems that can momentarily reverse entropy at the quantum level, tiny particles that move from chaos to order. It's not magic, it's probability, it's possible, but only briefly, only with energy, only against all odds. It's like holding back the tide with your breath, but still, it happened. And if it can happen there, could it happen to you? Imagine a world where entropy reverses, your wrinkles smooth, your scars vanish, your lost loved ones return, not through memory but through reality itself. The ashes reform into flames. The music unsings itself into silence. You move from death to youth to birth. Is that rebirth? Or is it annihilation? Because remember, if entropy reverses, so do your memories. You don't remember the life that came before. You only feel time moving in whatever direction entropy takes you. You'd be you, but also not. And here's the final paradox. If entropy gives time direction, and entropy can flow both ways, then time is not a river. It's a mirror, and you are only seeing one side of it, the side that crumbles, the side that forgets, the side that slowly, softly loses. But what if the mirror cracked? What if you saw the other side? Would you reach through? Would you reverse? Or would you finally understand? That time was never real. Only entropy was. And it never cared about you. He's the reason we believe apples fall downward, not upward. The man who chained motion to mathematics. The architect of classical physics, Isaac Newton. But what if the very man who gave us the laws of nature had also left a hidden crack in them? A crack that, if you look closely, shows you a terrifying truth. Time doesn't care which way it flows. You were taught that cause comes before effect, that the cue ball hits the 8-ball and then the 8-ball moves, that rain falls, puddles form, and the sun dries it. But Newton's equations? They don't care. They work just as well backward, and that changes everything. Let's go back. Not just to the 1600s when Newton sat beneath that famous tree, but further. Back to the origin of motion itself. Back to when no one could explain why things moved, why objects stopped, why they flew, why they fell, until Newton gave the world 3 elegant laws. An object in motion stays in motion. Force equals mass times acceleration. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So simple, so powerful. They've survived centuries. But here's the part they didn't teach you in school. None of those laws say time must move forward. You throw a ball. It arcs through the air, lands. If I recorded that and played it backward, would you know it was reversed? The ball would leave the ground, arc up, return to your hand. It'd look normal, because Newton's laws can't tell the difference. They're symmetric, time-neutral, unbiased. Meaning, if the universe started playing in reverse right now, Newton wouldn't notice. The math would keep working, just backward. So why do we think time goes forward? Because we do. Our minds, our bodies, our memories. We age. We remember the past, not the future. We react to cause, not effect. But that's biology, not physics. Our experience of time is not written into the fabric of Newton's universe. It's just a feeling we've been trained to trust, and that's where the revenge begins. Because Newton, genius that he was, unknowingly cursed us. He gave us a world that behaves perfectly, predictably, deterministically, but only when we assume we're not special. Only when we accept that time is a directionless number, not a force. In Newton's universe, if you know the position and velocity of every particle, you can predict the future, or rewind the past, perfectly. No uncertainty, no mystery, just clockwork. He built a world of gears, a cosmic machine. But in that machine, free will doesn't exist. Time doesn't matter, and you are just a cog. Now imagine that universe, in reverse. You don't make decisions. You unmake them. You don't choose to move your arm. The particles in your shoulder align because they must. Because that's what the equations say they should do, backward. You didn't say, I love you, because you felt it. You said it because atoms moved in a precise, pre-written path that demanded you say it. You're not alive. You're unaliving, unfolding, dissolving, returning to where you came from, not forward but backward. That's Newton's revenge. He didn't just give us science. He gave us a world where choice might be an illusion, where time might be irrelevant. But wait, it gets worse. Because Newton's laws also allow for predictability. If I throw a rock at a window, I can calculate the exact force needed to shatter it. But here's the mirror image. In reverse, those shattered shards could reform the window, fly backward through the air, reassemble in my hand, perfectly, impossibly, but not mathematically impossible, only statistically. So why doesn't it happen? Because of entropy. But you already know that part. Here's the twist. If entropy is the only thing preventing that backward motion, then Newton's world is still standing there, waiting for a day when entropy fails. And if that day comes, the glass reforms, the broken heart heals, not emotionally, but literally. The lost moments of your childhood return, rewinding into clarity and Newton's cold equations. Will guide it all in silence. Let's go deeper. Imagine standing in a room. You drop a pen. It falls, hits the floor, rolls. Now in reverse, the pen rolls, jumps, flies up, lands back in your hand. Sounds ridiculous. But if we ran the universe backward, if we rewound the particles, you wouldn't notice. Because Newton's laws wouldn't care. You'd catch the pen, you'd smile, you'd turn away, as if nothing strange had happened. And to you, it wouldn't be strange. Because your memory would be reversed too. You wouldn't remember dropping the pen. You'd remember catching it, and that's the trap. That's how time deceives you. It doesn't feel reversed, because your story is rewriting itself with you in it. So what happens if you break Newton's symmetry? What if something, anything, prefers one direction? That's where modern physics tried to go. Relativity, quantum mechanics, the search for time's bias. But still, Newton's ghost lingers in every simulation, every galaxy, every falling leaf. A timeless, indifferent hand still moves everything, and it doesn't care if it moves you backward. Now let's step away from science. Let's talk about you. You make choices every day. What to eat, who to call, whether to say yes or no. But in Newton's universe, those choices were written the moment the universe began. Predetermined, baked into the equations. That's the horrifying beauty of his vision. It works too well. And in that vision, you're not walking through time. You're following a script. Whether it's forward or backward, doesn't matter. So if time suddenly reversed, if entropy collapsed, and the universe began to unbuild itself, Newton would say, so what? His equations would hum the same quiet tune. The apple would rise back into the tree. The tears would retreat into your eyes. The grave would birth the body, and none of it would be wrong, because in Newton's world, there is no wrong, only motion. That's his revenge. You built a world that worships time, but he built one that doesn't need it. And in that world, you are not the hero of the story. You are a character trapped in reverse, smiling at a memory that hasn't happened, falling in love with someone you've already forgotten, breathing backwards. There is a law in this universe that doesn't blink, doesn't break, doesn't even breathe. It doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about your future. And it definitely doesn't care about your survival. It's not gravity, not motion, not even time. It's entropy. And it doesn't whisper like Newton's equations. It screams the second law of thermodynamics. In any closed system, entropy always increases. This isn't a rule. It's a tyranny, a monarchy of disorder. And we, you, me, the stars, are its servants. No appeals, no revolutions, no freedom, only decay, only the slow, elegant death of structure. Let's talk about this tyrant in its true form. Imagine a room. In the corner is an ice cube. In the air around it, warmth. Now you wait. Time passes. The ice melts. Water spreads. The temperature evens out. Eventually, the room reaches a balance, a perfect mediocrity. No heat, no cold, just gray. Entropy won, and it always does. But here's where it gets interesting. Nothing forces the ice to melt. The laws of motion don't say it must. The particles are still obeying Newton, still dancing to the same rhythms. But the probability of the reverse, the melted water turning into ice again, drawing heat out of the air, is almost zero, not impossible, just infinitely improbable. That's the magic trick. Entropy doesn't outlaw order. It just buries it under mountains of chaos. It makes the ordered states so rare, they disappear. Not because they're forbidden, but because they're forgotten. So why does this matter? Because entropy is the only force in physics that gives time a direction. It's the only reason we know before from after. It's the only reason we say something happened. Without entropy, the universe would be a slideshow. A frozen cube of all possible states, all existing at once. Time wouldn't exist. Memory wouldn't exist. You wouldn't exist. Because entropy isn't just a measure of disorder. It's the fuel of consciousness. Still with me? Good. Now let me show you how deep the tyranny goes. You're made of systems, biological machines fighting against entropy. Your cells are ordered, your thoughts are structured, your memories are stored in molecules that resist decay. But every second, entropy eats at you. You age, you forget, you weaken. That's not just life, that's entropy, tightening its grip. You're not growing older because of time. You're decaying because the tyrant demands it. Now imagine a world where entropy stopped increasing, where the universe reached thermal equilibrium. No more heat, flow. No more differences, just balance. Sounds peaceful, right? It's not. It's called the heat death of the universe. A cosmic graveyard where nothing happens because nothing can. Every star burned out. Every black hole evaporated. Every particle too evenly spread to ever interact again. Perfect entropy. Perfect death. Let's twist it now. What if entropy reversed? What if, instead of rising, disorder began to shrink? Order increased. Heat gathered instead of dispersing. Broken things healed. Stars unburned. Ashes turned back into trees. You woke up with more memories, not fewer. The world grew. Younger, not older. Entropy descending, time reversing. But here's the catch. Your brain, which tracks time by entropy, would believe that was forward. You'd never know time had flipped because your memories would flip with it. You'd be walking backward and calling it tomorrow. This is the cage entropy built. We're inside a system that began ordered, low, entropy, and is rushing toward chaos. And because we measure change by entropy, we think time is moving forward. But in truth, time is just the side effect. Entropy is the cause. Time is the illusion the tyrant lets you keep. So you'll keep walking, even as everything falls apart behind you. Now let me shatter something. Else, most of the universe already obeys the tyrant completely. Stars burn and die, atoms scatter, galaxies drift. But life? Life is a tiny, defiant flame. It resists entropy. It builds order from chaos. Your cells use energy to maintain themselves. Your brain burns glucose to sustain memory. Life is entropy's enemy, but also its greatest servant. Because to fight entropy, you must release more of it. You burn energy. You breathe. You eat. All of it increases entropy elsewhere. Life is a rebel that fuels the kingdom it hates, a prisoner who sharpens the warden's blade. And here's the final horror. Even thought obeys entropy. You have an idea. You feel something. You love someone. All of it exists in physical patterns. Neurons, proteins, synapses, and all of it will break down. Your memories will rot. Your thoughts will vanish. Your soul, if you believe in it, is housed in a temple of sand. Entropy is not just a tyrant. It's your executioner. So why does this matter? Because entropy is the only reason time seems real. And if we found a way to reverse entropy, we would reverse time itself, not theoretically, literally. That's why scientists are obsessed with it. That's why philosophers fear it. And that's why you should too. Because entropy isn't just a scientific principle, it's your jailer. And the walls are closing in. There's a thought experiment so ordinary, so laughably simple, you've probably never questioned it. You've seen it play out 100 times. An egg slips from someone's hand. It hits the floor, cracks, spills, spreads. And that's it. Game over. We accept it, don't we? It's just what happens. But let's ask the forbidden question. Why can't a broken egg put itself back together? Why can't the yolk re-enter the shell? Why can't the cracks seal up? Why can't time rewind just for a second? The math doesn't forbid it. Physics doesn't forbid it. Only something deeper does. And tonight, we're going to find out what. Because this broken egg isn't just breakfast. It's the symbol of everything you've ever lost. Let's freeze that moment. The egg, suspended midair. Shell, still perfect. Gravity, waiting. Now press play. It falls. Cracks. Fragments scatter. Now imagine reversing that. The shards would dance off the tiles. Yolk would gather itself like liquid memory. The shell would stitch together, and the egg would rise. Not just repaired, unbroken. Now tell me, does that sound physically impossible? Because here's the catch. It's not. The equations of motion allow it. Thermodynamics allows it. Statistically. Quantum physics doesn't even blink. Then why doesn't it happen? Because the universe doesn't do miracles. It does probabilities. And the odds of that egg rebuilding itself? In 10, 10, 100. That's a number so big, the universe doesn't have enough atoms to write it down. But if the math allows it, if time could flow backward, then maybe the egg wants to come back together. Maybe it's just the rest of reality that says no. Maybe the egg is trying to remember what it was. Maybe you are too. Let's go deeper. Because this isn't just about an egg. It's about irreversibility. You don't just break eggs. You break trust. You break hearts. You break yourself. And all of it feels one way. Like an arrow shot into the void. But why? Because the second law of thermodynamics, the tyrant we met earlier, tells us in a closed system, disorder must increase. A whole egg is one state. Broken. Pieces are a trillion states. Entropy demands we move from the rare to the common, from the unlikely to the inevitable. And once you've stepped into the common, there's almost no way back. Now imagine this. What if we could build a machine that reversed entropy? A chamber where the air unmixes, where cold becomes hot, where the shattered egg reassembles. This isn't just fantasy. Scientists have done versions of it. At the atomic level, particles have been seen to reverse direction, entropy dropping briefly. It's rare. It takes energy. It doesn't scale easily, but it proves the principle. The egg could unbreak, but the universe refuses to let it. Here's something chilling. You are a broken egg, not just physically, but emotionally. You were born whole, a perfect arrangement of chaos into order, and every moment since, you've been cracking. Every regret, every goodbye, every forgotten memory. Entropy isn't just physical, it's spiritual. It's why some things once lost can never be truly found. You can forgive someone. You can make amends, but you can never unhurt them. You can apologize, but you can't rewind, because even our emotions follow entropy. They spread, diffuse, fade, and try as we might, we can't gather them back into their original form. We are all eggs. Mid-fall. Let's return to physics. In quantum mechanics, there's a phenomenon called wave function collapse. It means a system can exist in all possible states until observed. Then it picks one. Reality decides. But what if time itself is a collapsed wave function? What if all directions were possible? Until something observed us? And from that moment on, we fell. Downward, forward, toward entropy, toward the breaking. There's a myth in some ancient cultures of the cosmic egg, a perfect primordial unity, one that shattered to birth the universe. Order into chaos. Sound familiar? It's not a metaphor. It's thermodynamics. The Big Bang was a low-entropy event. The first crack, and everything since, just shell fragments dancing in the dark, galaxies, stars, you, all of it. Echoes of that original break, all of it, trying to find its way back. So now we stand here, in the kitchen, at the moment of the fall, and we ask, can the egg unbreak? Can you? Can the universe? Maybe. But you'd have to reverse everything. Time, heat, motion, thought, even memory. You'd have to forget the fall. Forget. The shatter. Forget yourself. And maybe, just maybe, the shell would close, and you'd rise from the floor. Whole. But here's the final twist. Maybe we never see the egg unbreak. Not because it can't, but because the second it starts to, we become the egg again, and we forget. The broken pieces were never seen returning to form, because the moment they do, we're back at the start, back at the edge. Holding the egg, about to drop it, and wondering, just for a second, what would happen if we didn't? Before the fall, before memory, before even time. There was only silence, not the silence of space or darkness or sleep, but the kind of silence that has no beginning, because beginnings hadn't been invented yet. A silence so deep, not even nothing existed. And then, without a sound, everything happened. We call it the Big Bang, but that name is wrong. There was no bang, no explosion, just an instant, a breathless eruption of energy, matter, space, and time itself. The moment when nothingness became something. The moment when time decided to start ticking. But here's the paradox. If time began then, what was before? That? What does before mean when time didn't exist? And most disturbingly, did time begin in just one direction, or did it split? Like a crack through a mirror, one path going forward, One path flowing backward. Let's freeze that moment. Time. 0. All matter, all energy, all forces condensed into a single, infinitely hot, infinitely dense point, called a singularity. No distance, no motion, no entropy. A perfect stillness. Faraday, cosmic egg, untouched. And then, from that state of maximum order, the universe bloomed. Not because it had to, because it could. Entropy didn't explode. It was born. And from that moment, chaos began its quiet campaign. But here's the question physicists can't stop asking. Why did the universe start in such an ordered state? That's like flipping a deck of cards and having them land perfectly sorted. It shouldn't happen. It's the most unlikely thing imaginable. And yet, it did. Why? Some say it's luck, some say it's fate, some say it's God. But what if the real answer is far stranger? What if the Big Bang didn't create one universe? What if it created two, one where entropy increases like ours, and one where entropy decreases? A mirror world where time flows backward. This is called the Janus model, named after the Roman god with two faces, one looking forward, one back. In this theory, the Big Bang wasn't a beginning. It was a middle. Time didn't start moving from 0 to infinity. It started moving from 0 in both directions. Two universes, two arrows of time, both expanding, both evolving, both thinking they're moving forward, but to each other. They're in reverse. Imagine it. Somewhere across a cosmic divide you can't see is a version of you, but you're dying while they're being born. You're aging while they're growing younger. Your past is their future, and vice versa. And yet, to both of you, it feels normal, because memory adapts, thought adapts, narrative adapts. Time isn't real. Experience is, let's go deeper. The singularity, where the Big Bang happened, is a place of no time, not zero time, no time. All possibilities exist, all configurations, all directions, and in that stillness, symmetry ruled. So when the universe began to unfold, the symmetry had to break. But how it broke? That's everything. It's like flipping a coin, not between heads and tails, but between two entire realities. One flowing this way. One flowing that, we got this one. The forward arrow. The falling egg. The aging body. The rising entropy. But it could have been the other. Or maybe it was. Now picture the moment time was born. You think it was a flash of light? It wasn't. It was a choice. Not made by a god or a mind, but by entropy itself. In that first moment, the universe decided how likely the future was, not what would happen, but what could. And in doing so, it laid out the story of everything, from galaxies to atoms, from birth to death, from you to now. All of it, written on the curve of time's arrow. But now imagine a twist. What if the arrow is bending? Some physicists believe the expansion of the universe might one day reverse. That gravity will win, that stars will dim, that matter will collapse, and that everything will return to that singularity, the big crunch. If that happens, time itself might reverse. Entropy would decrease. Memories would unform. You would live your life backward, and when the singularity is reached, maybe it happens all over again. Bang, expand, collapse, reverse, eternally, a heartbeat of creation and destruction, forward and back and forward. No beginning, no end, just rhythm. Here's the ultimate question: if the birth of time is just a temporary phase, are you real, or are you a wave in the ocean of reversibility? Are you a directionless pattern dancing in entropy's dream? What if the universe is like a song, one that plays forward, then backward, and forward again? And your life? is just a note rising, falling, echoing, but don't be afraid, because even in this strange bending reality, even if time is a mirror and you are its reflection, you still feel it, you still remember it, you still exist. And maybe that's all that matters. Not the arrow, not the origin, not the end, but the moment you're in, right now. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the world feels off, not broken, not wrong, just reversed. You try to speak, but your words rush back into your throat. Your coffee rises from your cup into the kettle. The newspaper folds itself neatly, ink draining from the page. Birds fly backward. Raindrops leap from the pavement into the sky. And yet, everything feels normal, because your mind is also reversed. Your memory, your attention, your expectations. You're not witnessing the reversal of time. You're living. It and that right there is the great illusion. The arrow hasn't been turned. You have. Let's step outside the illusion. For centuries, we believed time was like a road, a one-way street, past behind us, future ahead, present the moving car. But what if that road was just a painting, a trick of the brain, a story told by entropy to keep us from seeing the truth? There is no direction, only difference, only contrast, only the illusion of before and after. Now take that illusion and flip it. In a time-reversed universe, everything happens backward. People age from old to young. Memories vanish instead of forming. Death is the beginning. Birth is the finale. But here's the catch. You'd never notice. Because your cognition would also reverse. You wouldn't remember the past. You'd remember what we call the future. You wouldn't say, I just made that choice. You'd say, I was always going to make that choice. To you, it would still feel like forward. That's the trap. We don't experience time. We experience change. And the brain labels it, stitches it together, and calls it direction. Let's use an analogy. Imagine watching a movie backward. You, the observer, notice that the plot is reversed. The hero dies, then comes alive. Tears flow back into eyes. Buildings unexplode. It looks absurd. But what if the characters in the film also experienced it backward? What if their dialogue, their thoughts, their emotions all flowed in reverse? Then the backward movie would feel forward to them. That's what a reversed universe would be. Not absurd, not nonsensical, just different and terrifyingly undetectable. So, here's the real question. Could we be in that kind of universe right now? Is it possible that time is flowing backward? And we don't even know it? Most scientists say no, but not because the math forbids it, only because of initial conditions. Our universe started in a low entropy state. That's what gives us direction. But what if we misread those conditions? What if time began flowing the other way the moment we were born, or even worse? What if it switches randomly? Moments of forward, moments of backward. And we're just too deep inside the illusion to notice. Let's test it. Picture this moment. You're sitting, breathing, thinking. Now imagine this is the end of your life, and everything from here on out moves toward your birth. But your brain plays along. It forms memories of what hasn't happened. It learns in reverse. It plans for things you've already done. You feel alive. You feel real, but you're not living. You're unliving, dismantling yourself, thought by thought, memory by memory, moment by moment, like a book that's being unwritten, one letter at a time. Now let's raise the stakes. Let's imagine a society where everyone is reversed, where time-reversed humans believe they're moving forward, where doctors cure diseases before you're sick, where lovers mourn each other before they meet, where scientists predict things that have already happened. It would be identical to ours. Same fears, same struggles, same beauty, but completely backward. And no one would know. Because in a time-reversed mind, knowledge is subtraction. You don't learn, you unlearn. You don't build, you dismantle. And yet, it feels like growth, because you're not watching the sandcastle crumble. You're watching it rise from the dust. But let's make it personal. What if your own life has already happened? What if everything you think is new is just a step backward? Your heartbreaks are reunions. Your regrets are undoings. Your victories are returns to weakness. What if your very next breath is one you already exhaled, and your final moment is waiting, not at the end, but at the beginning? Your birth. Your first cry. The moment your arrow ends. Let's go deeper. There's a concept in theoretical physics called CPT symmetry, charge, parity, time. It suggests that if you flip the charge of particles, mirror their position, and reverse time, the universe would still work, still function, still follow the laws. Which means a perfectly reversed universe is not only possible, it's equal, it's valid. And if that's true, then our direction is just one version of reality. A coin toss, a path chosen by entropy, but not the only path. So why do we feel so certain? Why does this direction feel right? Because that's how entropy moves here. Because we were born into a world that remembers before and not after. But if you were born in reverse, you'd feel just as certain, just as convinced, just as blind. Let me leave you with a final vision, a dream maybe. You're walking through a forest. The trees are unburning. The leaves are returning to branches. Your footprints rise from the ground. Your breath flows into your lungs. And ahead of you, at the center of the woods, is a mirror, not reflecting you, showing you. The other version, the one living backward. The one that smiles when you frown, speaks when you listen, remembers what you forget. You reach out, touch glass, and realize you're both real, just walking in opposite directions. The clock ticks. You glance at it. Minutes pass. Hours dissolve. You feel it, the flow, the certainty that this moment is leaving, and the next is on its way. But pause for a second. Really pause. What if that feeling isn't real? What if the passage of time, the flow, the momentum, the story you think you're living, is all in your head? Not as a metaphor, not as poetry, but literally. Tonight we open a door you've always walked through blindly. We open the door to your own mind. And what you'll find inside might not be a ticking clock, but a looping lie. Let's start here. Have you ever had a dream that felt like hours, but lasted seconds? Or a moment in real life that stretched, like slow motion? Time, as you experience it, isn't consistent. It bends, it twists, it skips and shudders. But physics doesn't allow that. A second is a second. Time, in theory, ticks evenly for all. So why does it warp inside your mind? Because what you call time is actually attention. Neuroscientists have studied this deeply. They found that your brain doesn't measure time like a stopwatch. It measures change. The more changes your brain detects, flashes, sounds, motion, emotion, the longer a moment feels. The fewer the changes, the shorter the moment feels. That's why time flies during routine and drags during chaos. So now ask yourself, if your brain controls your experience of time, who's to say it isn't inventing it? Who's to say the flow isn't just a side effect of memory and perception? Let's go deeper. The psychologist, William James, once said, "Time perception is the brain's way of tracking change." But here's the dangerous part. Your brain can hallucinate change. It can misremember it. It can insert events that never happened. Meaning, time is not a sense. Like sight or sound, it's a construction, a narrative. And all narratives are edited, which means, terrifyingly, your past might be a fiction, a best guess, a stitched-together dream your neurons told you, not because they're lying, but because they don't know. Now imagine this. You, Wake up with no memory. You see a sun in the sky. You feel hunger. You hear birds. You start building a story. I must have eaten yesterday. I must be alive for a reason. I must be going somewhere. But those thoughts are inventions, not based on evidence, based on expectation. That's what your mind does every day. It invents time backward, like laying down a trail of breadcrumbs behind your footsteps. And then it says, see, that's where I came from. But maybe there was no path. Maybe the trail was laid down as you looked back. This is called the specious present, a theory that your consciousness lives only in a bubble, a few seconds wide, where the illusion of continuity is created, like flipping through still photos quickly to make a movie. The past isn't real, just the frames you stored, the future, even less real. Just the frames you expect, and the present, a construction, a hallucination, a story your mind tells itself every second. There are people who lose this illusion. Neurological patients with damaged hippocampi, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories, live in eternal present. They forget the moment right after it happens. And guess what? They don't perceive time anymore. To them, the world is not moving. It's just happening, one blink at a time. No arrow, no direction, just now. Which means, maybe, the arrow you feel is just a trick of memory. Let's twist it further. You're reading this right now, but you don't remember every word. You remember the meaning. You summarize. Your brain shortcuts. In fact, your mind alters the memory immediately after each second passes. It recolors what just happened depending on emotion, bias, expectation. That means your past isn't just remembered. It's rewritten, and if your past can be rewritten, then what is time? Here's a nightmare. Imagine you're trapped in a simulation, but it's not futuristic, not digital, not sci-fi, it's biological. The simulation is your own brain, crafting a fake continuity of events based on internal guesses. You're not moving through time. You're being shown frames one after the other, and your brain tells you this is a journey. But it's not. It's a slideshow. A hallucinated ride through memories that were never real. And that's not fiction. That's what cognitive science says you experience every day. Let's add another twist. What if two people experienced the same event, but one remembers it differently? Time for each of them now flows in different narratives. To one, a moment feels long. To the other, it felt fast. To one, it happened before lunch. To the other, after. Their psychological arrows of time have diverged. Now expand that idea. What if you are diverging from everyone else? What if your illusion of continuity is unique to you, and the moment you lose memory, you fall out of time? So then ask, what if you could manipulate that illusion? Some monks claim they can slow time with deep meditation. Athletes say moments freeze during intense focus. Victims of trauma report events happening in slow motion. Time, it seems, is not objective. It's a mental lens, and every lens can be adjusted. What if you could adjust yours permanently, speed up life, slow it down, even pause it, or even darker? Reverse it, not physically, cognitively, living life as if you were moving backward, because your memory rewrote itself in reverse. To you, that would feel forward. To everyone else, you'd be broken or enlightened or both. And now, the scariest part, we trust time, we base our identity on it. I was this. Now I am this. Soon I'll be something else. But if time is just a mental algorithm, a guess, a story, then who are you without it? What happens when the illusion breaks? When the breadcrumbs vanish? When the film reel stops? Who is left? Maybe no one. Or maybe someone more real than ever. Not a creature moving through time, but a spark, suspended in the eternal now, watching the illusion burn away and finally seeing that the arrow was never real, only the mind, only the moment, only you. Close your eyes. Now try to remember your first birthday. Can you see the cake? The candles? Your parents' faces? No? Of course not, because you weren't really conscious. You didn't store it. And so, to you, it never happened. But wait. It did happen, right? Didn't it? Or has it only happened because others told you it did? Or because there's a photo? Or because your brain needed something to fill the void? Let's go deeper. What if every memory you trust is a hallucination, not based on facts, but on predictions? What if the arrow of time is nothing but the trail of dreams you believe are real? Tonight, we separate the ghost of memory from the machine of reality, and what we find in between might be the end of time itself. Let's begin with a test. What color was your childhood bedroom? Think, visualize it. Maybe it was blue, or green, or wood-paneled. But how certain are you? What if I told you 40% of people misremember room colors entirely? What if your memories were actually reconstructions? Because that's exactly what they are. When you recall something, you don't replay it. You rebuild it, piece by piece, sound by sound, emotion by emotion. And each time you recall it, you change it, which means the past is rewritten every time you remember it. Let's put that into perspective. Imagine your memory as a VHS tape. Each time you play it, you record over it. Slight warps, slight shifts, until after a few years. The original is gone. What remains? A narrative, a composite, an echo. And yet, you believe it. You trust it. But what if time itself only exists because you trust memory? What if without memory the past disappears? Not just from your awareness, but from reality itself? That's the radical theory some cognitive scientists now entertain. That memory doesn't record time, it creates it. That the sequence of events you call a life is built from backward projections your brain forms in order to make sense of the now. Think of it like this. You wake up. You feel sore. You're holding a gym bag. Your brain, like a detective, asks, "What must have happened?" And it constructs a story. I must have worked out. I must have lifted weights. But maybe you didn't. Maybe the soreness came from illness. Maybe the gym bag was handed to you. Still, your mind fills the blanks. And that story becomes your memory. Truth doesn't matter. Continuity does. Let's break it further. Studies have shown that people can have entirely false memories implanted. Researchers described events that never occurred: a lost balloon, a broken window, a missing pet, and the brain believed them, created detailed recollections, imagined smells, sounds, conversations, even emotions attached to something that never happened. So now ask yourself, if your brain can create full experiences for fake pasts, then what is time? Is it a trail you followed or a map your brain sketched? Behind you as you walked? Here's the deeper danger. You don't just recall events, you recall feelings. I was scared that night. I loved that summer. I regret what I said, but those emotions are not constant. They're colored by who you are now. You project your current state onto the past, which means the you who lived it is gone. All that remains is a reconstruction, altered by every second that has passed since. The arrow of time. It doesn't point forward, it points inward. Let's go cosmic. If memory defines time, what about the universe? Does the cosmos have a memory? Some say black holes store information. Others say the radiation of particles holds ancient imprints. Still others say memory is an illusion, even to galaxies. But what if the universe itself is dreaming, rebuilding its own past every second? Cosmic microwave background radiation? Maybe it's just a celestial memory, flawed, fading, not a photograph. A guess. Maybe the Big Bang wasn't a moment. Maybe it was a story the universe told itself, so it would believe. It came from somewhere. Now imagine this. You forget everything. Who you are, where you are, when you were born. No identity, no timeline, no continuity. Are you still you? Or did you cease to exist the moment memory vanished? In that state, is time still flowing, or has it stopped? That's the ultimate test. Because if memory is gone, and nothing changes, then what is left? But here's the real mind breaker. What if your memories are not only wrong, but not even yours? What if your brain copies narratives from movies, from books, from dreams? You dream you climbed a mountain. Later, you remember it, vaguely. Years pass. It becomes real. Now your arrow includes a memory that came from fiction. So your past, the realist part of you, contains hallucinations, fragments, and you don't know which are which because memory doesn't come with labels. It just comes, and you believe. So what is reality? If the past is edited, the future imagined, and the present unclear, is anything true? Maybe reality is what resists memory, what refuses to be bent. Maybe pain feels more real because it burns a hole too deep to erase. Maybe trauma sticks because the brain doesn't know how to overwrite it, or maybe reality isn't a place. It's a choice to believe what you recall, to build your life around it, to say this happened even if it didn't. And that belief becomes your arrow, your direction, your story. But here's the escape. You can stop believing. You can let go of the past. Stop chasing the future. Live in the now. Not because time is sacred, but because it's fragile. And when you hold it too tightly, it breaks. Like a brittle memory, or a fragile dream, or a version of you that never existed until you remembered them. Forget the ticking clock. Forget the hourglass. Forget everything you know about time moving forward. Because Albert Einstein didn't see time as a flowing river. He saw it as a landscape, still, immovable, eternal. A place you don't move through, but a structure that simply is. He called it the block universe. And if he was right, then the past isn't gone. The future isn't waiting. And your life is already complete. Every breath, every kiss, every goodbye, etched, fixed, unchanging. You're not becoming someone. You already are, forever. Let's break this open. In Einstein's theory of special relativity, time is woven together with space. Space-time. 4 dimensions. Length, width, height, time. But time in this model isn't special. It's just another coordinate. You don't move through space-time like a train through a tunnel. You simply exist within it. Your birth, a point, your death, another, your first heartbreak, a glowing dot suspended in the tapestry. From this perspective, the universe is a frozen loaf of space-time, and your life, a line drawn through it. Now let me ask you something terrifying. If the future already exists, can you change it? If the past is still there, can you revisit it? If every version of you is written into this 4D shape, is free will real, or are you just a trace, like a fossil in space-time? Not living, just being, Einstein once wrote. For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion, a polite way of saying time is fake, your sense of motion through it, an emotional trick. Because in the block universe, there's no now, there's just there, and then, and always. Let's twist this. You feel like you're moving through time because your consciousness moves through moments. You remember what came before. You anticipate what comes after. But what if your mind isn't moving? What if it's simply reading your life, frame by frame, like a film reel? And just like a movie, all the scenes already exist. Beginning, middle, end, no changes, no rewrites, just experience. Played back on loop. You think you're alive, but maybe you're just watching yourself live. Let's imagine this physically. Picture a loaf of bread. Each slice is a moment in time. You, sitting here now, are just one slice. Behind you, earlier slices. Ahead of you, slices you haven't reached yet, but they're all part of the same loaf, all real, all complete. Now imagine every person you've ever loved is in that loaf. Each version of them suspended in their moments. You never truly lose them. They're just in another slice. Unreachable, but real. Now go deeper. What if time doesn't pass at all? What if passing time is a psychological effect created by the way your brain processes causality? In the block universe, there is no cause and effect. There is only coexistence, moments, side by side, without motion. The cause isn't before the effect, they both are. You didn't grow from child to adult. You are both, just in different slices, and they're all equally real. Right now. But this raises a chilling idea. If the future already exists, then is it truly the future? Or is it just the part of the loaf you haven't mentally visited? In this model, time is like a book you haven't finished reading. The last page already exists. It's written. It's binding. You just haven't read it yet. But someone could. Let's get personal. Every moment you've ever lived, every secret, every scream, every silent prayer still exists. Forever. Not as a memory, but as a slice of space-time. That time you held someone's hand, trembling. It's still happening. That laugh you shared before you drifted apart? Still ringing in the air. You're not losing your moments. You're just moving awareness across them. But the moment, it's eternal. So what does this mean for time's arrow? In the block universe, there is no arrow, just direction, just orientation. We think we're moving forward, but we're not moving at all. We're just a fixed line, a path already drawn. You might ask, can we change our path? No, but we can witness it more clearly. We can accept that the pain we fear and the joy we miss are still there. Not gone, not coming, just existing forever. Let's challenge it. What about free will? What about choice? If all moments are fixed, do we have none? Here's one view. You are not free to change the loaf, but you are free to experience it however you choose, to bring meaning to the frame you're in, to find love in a slice that hurts, to bring peace to the slice where you said goodbye. In a block universe, your power isn't control, it's presence, being deeply truly in your slice, knowing it lasts, always. And what about death? If your death is just another slice, then it's not the end. It's just one point, and all your other slices before it still exist, still happening. You don't die. You just exist differently. Your childhood self, still playing. Your teenage self, still dreaming. Your last breath, still being taken by the version of you that always will. And maybe that's enough. So when you look up at the stars tonight, don't think of yourself as a fleeting moment. Think of yourself as a shape, a pattern, a line etched into the geometry of the universe, unchanging, untouched by time, and infinitely, beautifully real. It's the one rule that no one dares to question. Entropy always increases. It's the heartbeat of the universe, the direction of time, the whisper of death in all things. But what if it's not absolute? What if, under certain conditions, entropy slips? Not metaphorically, not philosophically, but literally. What if time, even for just a heartbeat, could reverse? What you're about to hear isn't science fiction. It's happening in real labs, with real data. And the implications are so enormous, they could rewrite our very concept of reality. Tonight, we step into the places where time glitches. Let's begin small, because that's where everything starts, in the world of particles, electrons, atoms, molecules. Down here, physics behaves differently. Predictability disappears, causality wavers, and entropy, the sacred law, can sometimes be broken. In 2019, a team of researchers at the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, along with IBM, created what they called a quantum time reversal experiment. It wasn't metaphor. It wasn't illusion. They reversed entropy. Here's how it worked. They used a quantum computer. Inside it, they simulated an isolated system. No outside interference. In that system, they created a controlled quantum state, a neat, low-entropy condition. Then, they let it evolve. Chaos began to spread. Entropy increased exactly as expected. Now, here's the twist. They applied a specific sequence of operations, like rewinding the particles, and for a moment, entropy went backward. The system returned to a more ordered state. The broken pieces reassembled. The randomness became structure. Time, at the microbiome level, reversed. Let that sink in. They didn't stop time. They didn't fake it. They reversed its effect. It was brief. It was delicate. It was limited. But it happened. And if entropy can reverse, then time's arrow isn't a law. It's a suggestion, a statistical preference, not a cosmic commandment. Now let's scale up. Could this happen outside a lab? Could time reversal exist naturally, out in the wild? Some scientists believe the early universe may have contained entropy-decreasing pockets, tiny regions where particles briefly arranged themselves more neatly over time. We might never detect them, but they could be proof that entropy isn't always increasing, just mostly. And where mostly rules. Exceptions are born, tiny exceptions, fragile, rare, but real. Let's get even weirder. In certain crystals, called time crystals, researchers have found systems that oscillate without using energy. They move in repeating patterns, but they don't decay. They don't age. They don't lose structure. It's as if they resist entropy, not forever, but long enough to whisper a possibility that some systems can survive outside the current of time, not immune to it, but indifferent. Time. Crystals were theorized, then built, and now they exist right now in labs around the world. They're not magic. They're not fiction. They're a scientific rebellion, and maybe the first crack in the dam. Let's ask the forbidden question. Could we reverse entropy in human systems? Not particles, not qubits. People. Could we unage, unremember, undecay? There's research, still in early stages, about reversing aging in cells. Scientists have used Yamanaka factors to reset cells back to a more youthful state. They don't turn back time, but they erase entropy from the cellular structure. Wrinkles disappear, DNA damage heals, the clock ticks back, at least biologically. It's not full reversal. It's not magic, but it's not nothing. It's the beginning of biological entropy control, and it could be the prelude to something far greater. Let's flip to another frontier. Artificial intelligence, AI models don't experience time like we do. They learn by training on data, forward or backward, and researchers have shown that some AI systems perform better when trained in reverse. That's not metaphor. It means that feeding events in reverse chronological order results in stronger, more stable learning. In digital minds, entropy isn't king. Direction is optional. What if our brains could do the same? What if we could learn backward, heal backward, remember things that haven't happened yet? Some would call it prophecy. But it might just be reversed memory. Let's go deeper. There's a branch of physics called Loschmidt's paradox. It says, if the laws of physics are time reversible, then why do we see irreversible processes? Why does a cigarette burn but never unburn? Why does a body age but never grow younger? The paradox remains unsolved. But the experiments in quantum systems, where reversal is real, suggest an answer. Irreversibility isn't physical. It's statistical. Given enough energy, precision, and isolation, any system might be reversed. Even you. Even the universe. Let's dream a little. Imagine a future where entropy isn't a death sentence, where we can pause it, slow it, reverse it, not for minutes, but for years. Imagine a hospital room where your body is restored cell by cell, entropy rolled backward. Imagine a therapy that heals trauma not by understanding the past, but by literally reversing it inside your brain. Imagine a day when mourning is optional because every lost moment is recoverable, replayable, livable, not in memory, in reality. Of course, there are consequences. If entropy can be reversed, then time itself is no longer sacred. Regret becomes a choice. Aging becomes a setting. Death becomes a decision. And life becomes a loop, a rewritable file, a script, with no final draft. It's beautiful. It's horrifying. It's infinite. And it's possible. Not today. Not yet. But the door is open. And time might be walking backward through it. Let's imagine something dangerous. You're standing in your room, quiet, still. The lights hum. The shadows don't move. But something feels off. You open the door, and suddenly everything is reversed. Your apartment is the same, but the pictures are mirrored. Your bed is where it should be, but facing the wrong way. You walk to the mirror and see yourself. But the you looking back is different. Same eyes, same hands. But in those pupils is a truth you've never dared admit. They're living backward, and somehow, their world is right next to yours. Welcome to the possibility of parallel universes, where time runs in reverse and reality is a deck of cards, being shuffled both ways. Let's break this open slowly. In quantum mechanics, we face a maddening riddle. Every time we observe a particle, it behaves differently. A photon goes left, then right, then both. But until we look, it exists in all states, at once. This idea birthed the theory of the many worlds interpretation, a concept that says every possible outcome happens. Every choice splits the universe. You went to work. You stayed home. You lived. You died. All of it somewhere is real. But what if some of those realities don't just diverge in events? What if they diverge in time itself? This is where the rabbit hole deepens. Some physicists now entertain the idea that entire mirror universes exist, but where the arrow of time flows backward. Think about that. Not just different choices. Not just alternate versions of you, but universes where the future is their past, where stars don't explode, they unform, where corpses rise from soil, where rain unfalls into clouds, a world where entropy decreases, naturally. To them, it feels like forward. To us, it's insanity. But both realities are equally valid, just oriented differently. Here's how this might work. Go back to the Big Bang. The singularity, the moment everything was born. What if, in that explosion of time and space, the universe split not once but twice? One version expanding with increasing entropy. The other, our mirror twin, expanding in the opposite direction. Both born at the same moment, both racing away from the singularity, each believing they're the ones going forward. This is called the two-headed time model. And if it's true, then you're not just part of a universe. You're part of a symmetry, a pair, a rhythm, a mirror, and your reverse self might be watching you now. Let's take this further. If parallel universes exist and time flows differently in them, could we communicate across them? Some theorists say yes, through quantum entanglement. Two particles become linked. Measure one, and the other knows instantly. But what if one particle is in our time, and the other is in a time-reversed universe? What if the signal travels backward? You send a message, they receive it before you send it. It sounds impossible. But, mathematically, it works. It's called retrocausality, and it may already be happening beneath our awareness. Now ask yourself, what if your déjà vu is a leak? What if your dreams are echoes from your reversed twin? What if your instincts, those inexplicable pulls and gut feelings, are messages bleeding across the cosmic mirror? You thought they were random, but maybe they're you remembering the future, because for them it already happened, and for you, it's waiting. Let's now look at entropy. In our universe, entropy rises, but in a reversed universe, it falls. They would see our world as decaying. We'd see theirs as assembling. To them, we are dissolving. To us, they are reforming. Neither view is wrong, just oriented. The laws of physics are symmetrical. Only entropy chooses a direction, which means time itself might be nothing more than a local phenomenon, different for different universes, like gravity on different planets. You fall one way, they fall another, but both fall. So what if someday we found a doorway, a place where our timeline touches theirs? Would it be like stepping into a reversed movie? Would you speak backward, walk backward, or would everything just feel normal? Because, remember, in their world they've built memory, society, identity, just like we did, only in reverse. To them, it's not strange, and if you crossed over, you might not even notice, until it's too late. Let me give you a terrifying thought. What if death isn't the end? What if, in the moment your consciousness unravels, you don't fade, you flip, you fall backward into the reversed universe. You begin to unlive, not as a second life, but as a symmetrical continuation, an echo, a rewind, where the arrow changes direction, but you somehow stay conscious, eternally oscillating between two mirrored realms, never ending, only reversing. And here's the final twist. If reversed universes exist, then time is not a river. It's a fabric, folded, interlaced, layered. And maybe, just maybe, your choice is here. Create ripples there. Every decision, every fear, every hope, reflected backward. A cosmic feedback loop, you'd shaping your reversed self. Them, shaping you. An eternal dance of mirrored fate, and neither one of you, ever alone. Somewhere on the farthest edge of the cosmos, beyond galaxies and gravitational pull, past quasars and burnt-out stars, there may be a place where time runs backward. Not as a myth, not as a paradox, but as a mirror. And this isn't a wild guess. It's a scientific proposal. A daring theory that says our universe has a twin, not a copy, not a clone, a cosmic sibling born at the same moment we were. Only. It's running in the opposite direction. A universe expanding away from the same Big Bang, but with entropy decreasing, time flowing in reverse, and its history still being unwritten. This is the twin universe hypothesis, and if it's real, then time isn't a line. It's a loop. A reflection, a conversation across infinities, and you might have another self, living that reverse life. Right now, let's step back. It starts at the very beginning, the Big Bang, a moment when time, space, matter, and energy erupted into existence. But physics doesn't demand that only one universe came out of it. In fact, the math suggests something much more balanced. For every positive, a negative. For every action, a reaction. And if the Big Bang truly respects symmetry, then for a universe like ours, with increasing entropy, there must be another where entropy decreases, where time flows the other way, where the past is yet to happen, and the future is already gone. Imagine this: two universes expanding in opposite directions from the same central explosion, not parallel, not layered, but mirrored through time. To an external observer, if such a thing could exist, they would look like identical waves radiating out in reverse. One moving toward disorder, one toward order, and in the middle, the point where time begins for both, us. Here's where it gets beautiful. From inside our universe, the future is unknown. The past is remembered. In the twin universe, it's the opposite. They remember our future. They forget what we've already done. So what if the reason we can't predict the future is because it's stored over there? And what if déjà vu is a brief resonance between us? A shiver, a reflection, a ghost of a moment that hasn't happened here, but already occurred there. The twin universe hypothesis doesn't just emerge from imagination. It's supported by a real physical principle: time symmetry. Most laws of physics are time reversible. You can play them forward or backward, and they still make sense. So why does time only move one way? Because entropy breaks the symmetry. But if entropy increases in one universe and decreases in another, then symmetry is restored. Time is allowed to exist in both directions, equally. And that balance might be the most elegant truth the cosmos has ever whispered. But let's make it stranger. What if the twin universe isn't just out there? What if it's touching ours, not in space, but in time? A timeline unfolding in the opposite direction, weaving through our own, like a double helix. Maybe at the moment of your death, you wake up on the other side. Not reincarnated, not resurrected, but reflected, unraveling your life, unloving your loves, unlearning your fears, and it all feels familiar. Because it is. Just in reverse. Let's take this even deeper. Some physicists propose that information can never be truly destroyed, even in black holes, even at the end of time. So where does it go? Maybe it doesn't disappear, maybe it moves into the twin. Your choices, your patterns, your essence. Everything that entropy dissolves in this universe could be recorded in the other. Not like a database, more like a mirror script, a version of your life played backward, line for line, scene for scene, but with a different rhythm, a different logic, a world where you start as dust and end as a child. Imagine a civilization in the twin universe. They uninvent machines, they unexplore planets, they unsolve mysteries. To us, it sounds like regression. To them, it's creation. They're building order, reassembling structure, rising from complexity into simplicity. And to them, we're the backwards ones. We age, we forget, we destroy, they reverse, they remember, they restore. Now ask the question that changes everything. Could we ever reach them, communicate, touch, trade? Maybe not with words, but what about gravitational echoes, quantum ripples, entangled particles bouncing across the boundary? Maybe every particle here is linked to a twin, and when you affect one, the other remembers. Or maybe consciousness itself is the bridge. Maybe your dreams, your intuitions, your sense of timelessness are resonances from that mirrored reality. Not fiction, not fantasy, but feedback. You reflected across time. Let's consider this final image. Two universes expanding from the same origin. One growing old, one growing young. At the midpoint they're balanced. And maybe that balance is what creates the illusion of time, like tension on a string, like gravity between two stars. Without that pull, without that twin, nothing would move and time would never begin. So maybe you are not just a person living one life. Maybe you are half of something bigger, half of a symmetry, half of a conversation, half of a universe. That only makes sense when mirrored, and when you finally close your eyes, maybe someone else is just opening theirs. Imagine this. You flip a coin. It lands on heads, but later, someone reaches back in time and makes it land on tails instead. No machine, no paradox, just influence from the future to the past. Sound impossible? Then you haven't heard of retrocausality, a phenomenon in quantum physics that suggests the future isn't waiting for you. It's already shaping you, right now, right here, from behind the curtain of time. Tonight, we're tearing that curtain down. Let's start with the strange. In 1978, physicist John Wheeler proposed a version of the infamous double-slit experiment that would shake the foundations of causality. In this version, called the delayed choice experiment, a single photon travels toward a barrier with two slits. Normally, you'd expect the photon to either go through slit A or slit B, but quantum mechanics tells us it goes through both in a wave-like state until measured. Now here's the twist. You delay the choice of how to measure it until after the photon has passed the slits. And depending on your measurement, the photon seems to have decided retroactively whether it behaved like a particle or a wave. In other words, your future decision changes the photon's past behavior. Think about that. You're affecting the past from the future. This isn't science fiction. This is quantum reality, and it gets stranger. In 2007, researchers performed the quantum eraser experiment. They entangled pairs of photons. One goes to a detector, the other flies through a double slit. Setup. Now watch this. If the first photon is measured in a certain way, the second one behaves like a particle. If measured differently, the second behaves like a wave. But remember, the measurement happens after the second. Photon has already hit the screen. It's as if your later choice changed the earlier result, not just statistically, but causally. This is retrocausality. The idea that causes don't always precede effects. Sometimes effects can reach backward and rewrite the cause, like rewriting a sentence while you're reading it. Not just hypothetically, mathematically, physically. In quantum mechanics, this interpretation is gaining ground. It doesn't mean you can go back and stop a war, but it does mean that future conditions influence current probabilities. The arrow of time isn't broken. It's flexible, bidirectional, like a bridge that bends both ways. But how can this be? How can the future affect the past? Because time, in quantum mechanics, is not a fixed dimension. It's a parameter, a label we assign to sequences of events. But particles don't care about our labels. To them, time is just another coordinate, like height or mass. There's nothing sacred about before and after. There's only relationship. Cause becomes conditional, effect becomes influence, and the future becomes active. Let's go deeper. In two-state vector formalism, a framework developed by physicists Yakir Aharonov and Lev Vaidman, particles are described not by their initial state, but by two states, one evolving forward in time, one evolving backward together. They form a complete description. What does that mean? It means a particle's behavior isn't fully determined by where it started, but also by where it ends. Its future outcome is baked into its present identity. It's not what happened causes what will. It's what happened and what will happen define what is. That's not philosophy. That's quantum theory. Now picture this. You're about to make a choice, a real one, and your decision will ripple forward into the future. That's how we understand causality. But what if, unbeknownst to you, The future already happened, and it's pushing back, influencing your neurons, whispering into your subconscious, not controlling you, just nudging, so that the path ahead leads to where it's already been. Your life isn't a blank page, it's a tensioned bridge between what was and what must be. Retrocausality doesn't mean fate. It doesn't erase free will. It just bends the timeline into a conversation. You speak to the future, and sometimes the future speaks back, not in words, but in patterns, coincidences, synchronicities, gut feelings, moments where it seems like something already knows. You feel guided, warned, pulled, not by the past, but by a reality that already includes what hasn't happened. Now let's ask the question everyone avoids. Can we use this? Can we harness retrocausality? Not to change history, but to influence probabilities? Some researchers are exploring exactly that. Quantum computing models suggest that future outcomes can reinforce current decisions. Optimization algorithms may learn from the future by backpropagating data. In controlled systems, it's becoming clear. Time isn't a wall. It's a mirror. And if you touch it just right, your reflection touches you back. Let's step out of the lab, back into life. Think of your memories. They feel like anchors, right? Proof of where you've been. But what? If intentions are the same, echoes from where you're going. You think you chose to dream, but maybe your dream chose you from the other side. Maybe the future isn't distant. Maybe it's leaning in. Maybe the reason you're listening to this right now is because a version of you far ahead already did, and they're reaching back to bring you home. You've been told time flows forward, that the past is behind you, that the future is yet to come, that entropy rises and the universe decays, that you are on the right side of history, marching in the correct direction of time's arrow. But what if that's a lie, not a cruel lie? Not a mistake, but a local illusion? Because deep in the fabric of the cosmos, a terrifying possibility emerges. Maybe we're the ones going backward. Maybe everything you think is a beginning is actually an ending. Maybe your thoughts, your choices, your life, story are being played in reverse, and you're just too deep inside the dream to notice. Let's start by flipping the lens. Imagine looking at ants crawling across a whiteboard. You draw an arrow. They follow it. You decide they are going forward. But what if you were looking through a mirror? What if the arrow was facing the other way? The ants still move. They still follow logic. They still do what they do, but your interpretation was flipped. That's us. We're the ants. And time might be the mirror. We believe time flows forward because we remember the past, not the future. But we've already seen in quantum mechanics that memory can be manipulated, that cause and effect can be blurred. What if your memory isn't recording events? What if it's generating them, like a projector playing a film in reverse, but convincing you it's forward? Your memories aren't proof of the past. They're reconstructions of data your brain encounters now. Meaning, your sense of time is reverse engineered, and if your brain was built to read time backward, you'd never know. Let's return to the Big Bang. The universe began in a low entropy state. Since then, entropy has increased, giving us the direction of time. But here's the thing. Entropy could have been decreasing, and in some other region of space-time, maybe it is. The laws of physics don't care which way entropy flows. They work just as well in reverse. So what determines direction? Perspective. If a being existed in a reversed entropy universe, they'd believe their direction was forward and ours backward. Now ask yourself, what if they're right? What if we are the dissolving side of the coin, the ones unraveling, the ones forgetting, the ones decaying into silence? We build, then it breaks. We learn, then forget. We age, then die. Is that progress Or is it reversal? What if we're not becoming more complex, but losing the clarity we once had? Not growing, but ungrowing. Let's look at language. Over time, words simplify, grammar erodes, meaning becomes abstract. Is that evolution or entropy? Civilizations rise, then fall. Technologies emerge, then rot. Monuments are built, then buried. We call that history. But what if it's just the second half of a sentence? One that started far away with perfect structure and pristine logic, and we're only reading it backward? Some philosophers now propose that consciousness is time asymmetric, that our experience of self is tied to increasing entropy. But that doesn't prove we're going forward. It only proves we're on a particular path. And if entropy can decrease elsewhere, then maybe some version of you is becoming more connected, more coherent, more real, while you are unraveling, uncoiling, unraveling the braid of your being, thinking it's a journey, but it's really a reversal. Let's test the illusion. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like something already happened? Déjà vu? What if that's a flicker, a crack in the mirror? What if your brain, for a split second, caught a glimpse of the direction it's really moving? Not forward, but backward. And in that moment, you saw the next frame. Because you're already living in reverse, and the next frame is actually your past. Now here's a terrifying twist. If we are the ones going backward, then everything we think is progress is actually collapse. We think we're evolving, but maybe we're remembering what we once were and trying to imitate it poorly, like echoes of a song we forgot. We mimic civilization. We mimic connection. We mimic wonder. But we're not creating. We're decomposing. Like a movie running in reverse, explosions turning into form, ashes assembling into fire, laughter turning into silence, and we are applauding the decay. So what would it mean to reverse that reversal? Could we escape? Could we flip the arrow? Or are we trapped? Bound to entropy. Bound to decay. Maybe not. Maybe the path isn't about escaping time, but recognizing the illusion, realizing the movie is playing backwards, and watching it anyway, lovingly, consciously, without fear, and maybe, just maybe, if you stare long enough into the mirror, you'll see that your reflection was never opposite, just inverted, and that both yous, forward and backward, are one and the same, dancing across the arrow, trading places, trading time, until the very end, which of course was always the beginning, Open your eyes for the first time. But you're not a crying infant. You're not wrapped in blankets. You're not held in loving arms. You're lying in a hospital bed. Wires hum. Machines whisper. Your hair is gray. Your hands are wrinkled. Your back aches from 1,000 silent years, and just as you breathe in, the nurse says, "He's here. He's returned. You were never born. You were completed. And now you begin your life in reverse. In this world, birth is death. The final moment, the end point, the reward or the punishment. All your regrets are waiting to be undone. All your mistakes are set in stone until time chips them away one by one. You aren't growing into the future. You're shrinking into the past. Not metaphorically, not psychologically, literally. The first day of your reverse life feels strange. People weep, not because you were lost, but because you've come back. You don't open your eyes. You close them. You don't cry. You laugh uncontrollably, as if remembering the punchline of a cosmic joke that hasn't been told yet. Your children surround you, but to you they're strangers. They whisper familiar stories. Their faces are strange until they slowly begin to forget you, and as the days pass, Your body gains strength. Your spine unbends. Your lungs deepen. Your skin smooths. Not as healing, as design. The design of reverse time. You don't eat to nourish yourself. You uneat. Food rises from your stomach into your mouth. Savor vanishing instead of arriving. You don't speak. You unspeak. Your words return to your mind. Your conversations unhappen. You don't say goodbye. You erase it. In this life, relationships don't build. They deconstruct. You meet your soulmate at the height of tragedy. You've lived decades together. But in reverse, you begin at the final, aching goodbye. Their hands shake. Their eyes dim. You love them with the fullness of memory, but every passing day, they forget a little more. They smile less. They lean away. They let go, not out of cruelty, but because they're remembering you in reverse. Your kisses unhappen. Your laughter fades into silence, until one day you pass by them on the street, and they don't even glance. They've unloved you. And you still remember the warmth, but only for a little while longer. You continue shrinking. Your body becomes more agile. Your joints stop aching. Your teeth grow in. You stop needing glasses. Wrinkles vanish. Your mind clears. But so do your memories. You stop recognizing places, then people, then yourself. You forget birthdays, then names, then language. It feels like peace, but it's really disassembly, like a machine being taken apart with perfect precision. Education is reversed too. You begin as a master of knowledge. Doctors consult you. Scientists study your brain. You speak 10 languages, but slowly the complexity fades. You stop solving equations. You stop speaking clearly. You stop understanding stories. One day you open a book, and the letters make no sense. The next day, you forget what books are. Not because you're failing, but because you're succeeding in reverse. Returning to innocence. Every skill you've acquired, piano, painting, swimming, unfolds backward. You perform with brilliance, then mediocrity, then childishness, then nothing. You forget music, you forget rhythm. Your hands become too small to reach the keys, and one day, you stop trying. Society is reversed. Instead of striving toward retirement, you begin after retirement. You earn pensions before you've worked. You move into luxurious homes, then downsize, then rent, then share a flat, then sleep in a dorm. You unwork your way to school, then to preschool, then to home, then to crib, then to womb. But the most haunting part? You never know where you're going. You don't have dreams, only memories, and even those are leaving you. Your greatest moments, weddings, friendships, milestones, are slowly, systematically deleted. You don't die suddenly. You die incrementally, one smile at a time, one memory at a time, one goodbye at a time, until you are a child, confused, bright-eyed, blank. And then, you stop speaking, you stop walking, you stop knowing. There is no pain in the end, no trauma, no chaos, just warmth, silence, a heartbeat slowing, until it becomes a beginning. And then you return to darkness, to weightlessness, to silence. Not because you were never real, but because your story has been fully reversed, and the universe folds your thread back into its quilt. Not broken, not lost, just completed. It begins with a name you can't quite place, then a street that looks familiar but not enough to make you stop, then a laugh, someone close to you, maybe family, maybe not. You hear it, and nothing stirs, no spark, no warmth, no memory, just a hollow pause, because the laugh is already being unheard, the memory already slipping back into silence. You're not just forgetting, you're unremembering, and in this reverse life, memory doesn't fade, last. it fades first. In a normal life, memory is a scrapbook, pages added one by one, each picture more complete than the last. But in reverse, the scrapbook starts full, then empties itself, ripping out photos, dissolving handwriting, undoing moments, until one day, you're staring at blank pages, wondering why you feel so hollow. And the answer? You're not empty. You're just unwritten. Let's go deeper. You wake up one morning and forget where your keys are, then your neighbor's name, then how to tie your shoes. But you don't panic, because in this world, that's normal. Forgetting is progress. Unlearning is healing. Your past doesn't grow. It shrinks. And every time you smile, it's for something you no longer remember. A joy from a moment that was already deleted. You don't smile because you're happy. You smile because the memory of sadness was erased. Yesterday. Imagine that. Your grief's unhappening. Your traumas fading in reverse. Not with therapy, not with forgiveness, but with entropy. You don't let go. The universe pulls it from your mind, like unspooling a film reel backwards. The worst day of your life, undone. Not healed, not resolved, just forgotten, as if it never happened. And maybe that's worse, because it leaves a hole. And you don't remember what belonged there, only that something did. Let's talk about people. You've known someone for decades, a best friend, a spouse, a sibling. You've built memories together, vacations, fights, laughs, and one day you see them, and you don't feel anything. They're talking, they're crying, they're telling you a story, one you both lived. But to you, it's new, foreign, out of order, because the moment it happened, the memory was already being unwritten. You nod politely. You say, I understand. But inside, you feel a stranger brushing past your soul, not because they changed, but because you forgot. It gets worse. You begin to forget your own choices. You look at an old photo of yourself and don't recognize the expression. Don't remember the place. Don't remember what you were thinking. You see your face morphing backward through time. Younger, simpler, but also less known. As if you are becoming a stranger to yourself, and that's because you are. In reverse time, identity dissolves first, because identity is built from memory. Without memories, you're not you, you're just presence, a blank awareness in a shrinking body. Now let's talk language. You once spoke eloquently, quoted poetry, wrote essays, held arguments. Now your sentences are clipped, then single words, then gestures, then silence. Not because your voice is gone, but because the words are gone. The concept of communication itself is peeling off the walls of your mind. You don't forget language. You reverse through it. Grammar unlearns. Vocabulary unwinds. Syntax collapses. And soon your tongue is just sound, babble, emotion without clarity, meaning without message. The irony? You're happy because the memories of why you shouldn't be are gone. You no longer recall the betrayal, the abandonment, the heartbreak. All of it, erased in proper order. You unlearn pain. And in doing so, you become innocent again. But is that innocence real or just the absence of context? Are you pure or are you hollow? One day you sit on a bench. A stranger walks by and waves. They call you by name. You smile, not because you recognize them, but because your brain is trying to mimic what it used to know. The smile isn't yours. It's a reflex of a memory you no longer hold. And that's all that's left now, reflexes, habits, echoes of a self that once was, but isn't anymore. Because in a reversed life, memory dies before you do, but it doesn't happen all at once. There are moments, fleeting, when something stirs, a smell, a tune, a breeze across your cheek, and for half a second, you feel something you can't name. A warmth, a joy, a loss, you don't know what it is, but it aches, and that ache, that's memory, burning out, its final flare, the ghost of a goodbye you haven't remembered yet. Then one day, you wake up, and everything is new, not exciting, just blank. You don't know your name. You don't know the year. You don't know what knowing means. You sit, you breathe, you exist, and you don't question any of it. Because questions are memories too. And now, you have none. In this reversed world, you will grow younger. You will become smaller. You will forget everything, until even the word everything has no meaning. And when you finally reach the moment of birth, you will enter the womb with a mind wiped clean, a pure consciousness, a silence so deep even thought is a vibration you've never heard before. And then it ends. Or rather, it begins. You don't meet them at a party. You don't lock eyes across a crowded room. You don't feel sparks. You don't feel fire. No, you meet them at the edge of an ending. Their eyes are tired. Their hands don't reach for yours. Their voice is quieter than it used to be. They call you by your name, but with a softness that sounds like goodbye. Because in this world, love starts with loss, and every day that follows only takes you further away. You don't fall in love. You unfall. Backwards, beautifully, tragically, and you never see it coming because you're watching the film in reverse. Let's rewind the first kiss. You lean in. Your lips touch. It's electric. It's everything, but you don't feel fireworks. You feel distance, because this is not a beginning. It's a recreation of a moment you once forgot. And as you pull away, something is already missing. You can't quite place it. You think it's nerves. You think it's tension. But really, it's the start of the unbinding. The first night you spend together is the last time your bodies remember each other completely. After that, you stop sleeping close. You stop whispering. Dreams. You stop reaching for their hand at 2 a.m. You start sleeping apart. You stop fighting because there's nothing left to fight for. The passion burns backward into a spark. The spark into a silence. And every day, they look a little less like yours. You used to know everything about them. What makes them laugh. What breaks their heart. What songs they hum while cooking. But as the clock turns backward, you forget the lyrics. You forget the stories. You forget what their voice sounds like when they cry. Not because it wasn't real, but because reality is unraveling. And love is the first thread to loosen. The day comes when you no longer remember how you met. You think it was the park or the library or a friend of a friend. But the images blur. The memory has been erased, not like paper being crumpled, but like ink slowly fading into the fibers. And all that's left is a feeling. That once, someone meant everything to you, but you can't recall their face. You can't recall their laugh. You only remember the ache. And then, one day, you see them across a street. They smile. But it's not the smile you knew. It's brighter, more carefree, less shaped by the love you once had, because that love is now being unlearned. You wave. They wave back. It's polite, casual, empty, the kind of smile strangers give to strangers when they don't want to be rude, and your heart, already unraveling, tightens one last time, because you know this is goodbye. But not for them, only for you. After that, it gets quiet. You don't feel heartbreak. You don't cry into pillows. You don't replay arguments in your head, because those arguments unhappened. Your mind no longer holds the weight. The burden is gone, but so is the beauty. You forget the way they held you when you were sick. You forget the promises made under moonlight. You forget the way they looked when they said, "I'll love you forever," because forever never meant forever in reverse. It meant, I'll love you until you forget I did. Eventually, the idea of love becomes foreign. You stop looking for it, stop craving it, stop understanding it. You see people holding hands and don't feel envy. You hear songs about romance and don't relate. The concept itself is being erased. Your brain is deleting the entire language of intimacy, as if love was a dream you once believed in. But now, you can't remember why. And then the final reversal. You're back at the start. You're teenagers, strangers. You make small talk. You share laughs that don't feel familiar. You pass each other in hallways, you wave, you leave. No tension, no heartbreak, no pain. Just the quiet aftermath of something that hasn't happened yet. Only this time. It never will. Because time won't allow it. Because the arrow never pointed toward love. Only away from it. In reverse, love is not a journey toward union. It's a gradual collapse into isolation. Not because you failed, not because you were wrong for each other, but because entropy demanded separation. The universe doesn't remember love. It only remembers change. So what's left? You, sitting on a park bench, alone, but not broken, because in your heart, even though the memories are gone and the moments are reversed, somewhere, deep in the architecture of your soul, the shape of love remains, like a handprint on glass, faded, vanished, but real. And maybe that's enough. You don't walk into school with a backpack full of wonder. You walk out, diploma in hand, knowledge heavy in your head, certainty rooted deep in your bones. You know things, math, philosophy, language. You understand politics. You debate ethics. You quote Plato. You analyze Kafka. You're educated, accomplished, refined. You begin your life as a master. But mastery doesn't last, not in this world, because here, education is not a journey forward. It's a staircase you descend, one step at a time, one subject at a time, one truth at a time, until, eventually, you unlearn everything. Your first day of reverse school is your last in a normal life. You're celebrated. Commencement speeches echo across the auditorium. You shake hands with deans. You wear robes. You throw your cap in the air. You don't feel proud. You feel empty because, in your heart, you know what's coming. Tomorrow, you start forgetting. And there's no test to study for, only silence. At first, it feels like vacation. You don't need to memorize anything. You don't have to understand. You sit in lectures and your mind floats. Not because you're lazy, but because the lectures no longer stick. The formulas slip away. The theories feel hollow. The essays lose meaning. Soon, you stop attending entirely. Because school is no longer about learning. It's about undoing, and the system is designed for it. In elementary school, they call you advanced. You speak better than the teachers. You solve problems faster than your peers. You correct the textbook, but each day your sharpness dulls. You forget how to multiply. You forget history dates. You mix up words. You can't spell tomorrow. You try to write an essay, but halfway through you forget what a paragraph is, then what a sentence is, then what a letter is. You look at the page, and it stares back. Blank. Then comes art class. You used to paint galaxies. Now you draw stick figures. You used to sculpt emotion from clay. Now you can't remember how to hold a brush. Your lines shake. Your colors blur. Your vision dims. You once saw beauty. Now, you only see space, not possibility, just emptiness. You enter middle school knowing algebra. You leave not knowing what a number is, and no one stops you. Because in this world, that's how it works. Teachers unteach. Blackboards unwrite. Chalk undraws itself. They don't test your knowledge. They celebrate your forgetting, And when you finally forget your name, they applaud. Excellent, they say. You've reached baseline. You smile, though you no longer know why. Sports unlearn themselves too. You once played basketball like a pro. Now the ball feels foreign. The court feels too wide. Your coordination unravels. You forget the rules. You forget the team. You forget competition, until one day you're given a soccer ball and you cry because it's round and meaningless, and you don't know why it was ever important. You drop it. It rolls away. You never chase it. By the time you enter kindergarten, you are lost. You don't raise your hand. You don't sit still. You don't draw. You don't speak. You stare at the wall, feeling the pressure of thoughts you can no longer form. You try to remember what school used to mean. You try to remember what meaning means. But there are no answers. Only crayons. Only snack time. Only nap mats. And you lay down, not out of tiredness, but out of surrender, because learning is over, because the unlearning is complete. Now home is the classroom. You babble instead of read. You fidget instead of focus. You stumble instead of sit. And, your parents? They smile like everything's okay. Because to them, this is progress. Because this is the design. You're not meant to build anything. You're meant to return to the start. And then one day, you're in a high chair, and someone is clapping because you said apple, but you didn't. You just made a noise, and they interpreted it, and your brain, once filled with galaxies and algorithms, can no longer form even one coherent sentence. You spill food on the table. You smear colors on the wall. You laugh at nothing. You are pure chaos, not wild, just raw, unpolished, empty of logic, empty of memory, a creature before comprehension. And then there's no school, no books, no desk, no alphabet rug, just toys, just colors, just sound. And soon, not even that. Only walls, only silence, only the soft lullaby of forgetting, until the very last lesson is unlearned, that you ever existed at all. In every story, the hero begins as nobody. They receive a call, they cross a threshold, they face the monster, they rise in glory, they come home changed. That's the classic. Hero's journey, the story arc that defines myths, legends, and every movie you've ever loved. But in a reversed life, you're not called to greatness. You're called to forget it. You're not rising into meaning. You're falling out of it. You don't come home transformed. You leave home unmade. This isn't the hero's journey you know. This is the reverse hero's journey. And in this version, the ending is where the story begins. Your saga doesn't start in weakness. It starts in triumph. You are already the legend, the one who conquered, who solved, who ruled. Your name carries weight. Your reputation precedes you. The world looks to you for answers. But instead of climbing the mountain, you begin walking down it, backwards. Each step erodes the legend. Each moment rewrites the myth. And you don't fight the dragon. You set it free. Because your role in this story is not to slay monsters, but to unbecome the one who could. In the day, normal journey, you gather allies. In the reverse, you lose them, one by one. Not to betrayal, not to death, but to distance. They forget your face. They forget your victories. They forget the reasons they followed you. And so do you. Their names blur. Your bond unravels. Until one day you walk alone. Not because you're exiled, but because you've unearned their trust. You used to wield a sword. Now it feels heavy. Now it rusts in your hands. Now you forget why you picked it up in the first place. You used to speak with wisdom. Now your words are confused, jumbled, contradictory. People stop listening. Then stop asking. Because the hero has become quiet, not humble, just emptied. The towns you saved no longer tell your tale. They stop singing the songs. They stop painting murals. They erase your name from stone because your deeds are unhappening. The wars you ended rage again. The peace you forged fractures. The bridges you built collapse. And each morning you wake up with a little less memory of why you were ever called hero to begin with. Your mentor, gone. Not in death, but in deletion. You remember their voice, then only their face, then only a feeling, then nothing. You don't grieve. You don't search, because in the reversed journey, you don't seek truth. You lose it. In stories, the hero resists the call at first. In reverse, you resist the forgetting. You fight to remember. You write journals. You leave notes. You record. Your voice, but entropy is stronger. The ink fades. The tape warps. The words lose context. And your own handwriting becomes foreign. Your own voice sounds like a stranger. Until one day, you read your story and feel nothing. In your final battle, there is no enemy, no villain, no stakes, just confusion, just silence. You hold the sword, but it crumbles. You raise your hand, but it shakes. You try to speak, but the words are gone. The battle doesn't. And it unhappens. And you stand in a field of dust, wondering why your armor is so heavy when there's no one left to protect. Then the journey takes you home, but not to cheers, to questions. Your family doesn't recognize you because now you're younger. Now you're smaller. Now your eyes hold no memories. You knock at the door, but they don't open it because the hero they once knew is now a child with no past. And even you begin to wonder, was any of it real? Did you save anything? Did you change anything? Or was it all just a myth that's now untelling itself? In the final chapter, you are not greeted with purpose. You are placed in a crib. You no longer walk. You no longer speak. You no longer know what it meant to leave home to face the unknown, to return transformed. Because in reverse, you are untransformed, unbroken, unborn, and the journey ends, not with celebration, but with silence, because the only monster left is time, and it has finally finished unmaking you. But maybe the reverse hero's journey isn't a failure. Maybe it's the final gift, the stripping of titles, the dissolving of ego, the quieting of pride. Maybe the greatest heroism is in the surrender, not to death, but to becoming a child again, curious, open, vulnerable, willing to learn, if time ever runs. Forward again. You don't start your career with hope. You start with a legacy, a corner office, a nameplate, a list of accomplishments etched in awards and glass. People salute you in elevators. You're quoted in journals. You're mentioned in speeches. You are the top, the final rung. You wear tailored suits. You make impossible decisions. You don't answer to anyone. But in reverse time, that's the beginning. Because success is the past. And now comes the slow unworking of the ladder you once climbed. Now comes the great descent. On day one, you hand over your resignation. Not because you're done, but because you're starting. Your title disappears. Your team no longer reports to you. Your office is reassigned. Next morning, you walk into a meeting you once led, and now you're silent in the corner. The words they speak are familiar, but their meaning is fading, because knowledge, like time, is retreating. Your inbox no longer overflows. Your signature no longer commands. Your ideas no longer reshape policy. At first, it's peaceful. You say, I finally have space to think, but thinking becomes foggy. Your confidence in decision-making slips, not from pressure, but from deletion. You begin forgetting how systems work, how deals are made, how language flows in boardrooms. Soon, you're taking notes, not because you're eager, but because you no longer understand what's being said. The accolades on your wall? Gone, replaced with anonymous certificates, participation awards, blank. frames. Eventually, the wall is empty, and your desk is too, because the further you go, the more the world insists you were never important. Not now, not anymore. You're reassigned to a junior role. You shadow your old assistant, who no longer recognizes you. She explains systems you once designed. You nod. You pretend to take notes. You smile. But inside, a silence is growing, because every success you ever built is being deconstructed, brick by brick, file by file, memory by memory. Then you're sent to training, orientation, onboarding. You sit with fresh faces who ask you basic questions, and you don't know the answers. They hand you a manual. It feels heavy not because of content, but because you can't read it. The jargon, the structure, even the letters, they're slipping. You're no longer an asset. You're overhead. You start arriving late, not from laziness, but from disorientation. You get lost in hallways you once walked blindfolded. You forget your badge, then your lunch, then why you came in the first place. Your email is empty, your calendar clean, your desk gone. You are placed in a shared cubicle, then a temporary station, then you're told, today's your last day. And it's not cruel, it's protocol, because in this world, you unwork yourself into irrelevance. Unemployment isn't a tragedy, it's a phase. You move back home, not out of failure, but by design. You stop looking at job boards, stop editing your resume, stop explaining gaps in your experience, because now there is no experience, only gaps, only silence, only blank time waiting to unfill itself. You pick up part-time roles, not as a stepping stone, but as a descent. You sweep floors, you organize shelves, you follow orders, and even those skills fade, your hands shake. You forget what a cash register is. You hand the wrong change. Eventually, you're asked not to come back, not with anger, with pity, with a look that says, you're not built for this anymore. And they're right, because you're unbuilding. Your days shrink, no more alarms, no more schedules, no more meetings. You stop checking the clock, stop checking the date, stop remembering what day it is. Time used to race. Now it walks. Now it crawls. Now it barely moves. And you sit at the edge of your bed, trying to remember what you once cared about. But nothing comes, because passion, too, is being reversed. One morning, you wake up, and you are no longer working. Not because you retired, but because you never started. Your hands are soft, your body unused, your brain silent. And the only ladder you see is a memory you can't reach, a dream you don't remember having, an echo fading into a room that was once your empire. In the final days, you forget what a career even is. You don't recognize ambition. You don't understand purpose. You don't crave productivity. You're told to color inside the lines, and you try. You're given blocks to stack, and you fail. You're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you say nothing. Not because you don't know, but because you no longer know how to want. That's the career arc in reverse. Not a ladder climbed, but a structure dismantled. Not a path blazed, but one gently erased behind you, until there's only the ground, only the dirt, only silence. And in that silence, you realize you were never meant to leave a legacy. You were meant to unbecome, to dissolve, to return, not as a failure, but as a blank slate, ready to begin again if the arrow ever turns around. You were once the wise one, a mind sharpened by years, a soul carved by losses, a presence others came to for answers. You sat quietly not out of weakness, but because you already knew. You had seen things, understood things, endured things. And from that came wisdom, the kind that doesn't need to speak loudly. the kind that sits in stillness. But in reverse time, stillness is where it ends. And wisdom? Wisdom doesn't grow. It melts. Until there's nothing left but wide-eyed wonder and questions with no shape. Because in reverse, childhood doesn't lead to knowledge. It's where knowledge goes to die. And you are already dying into innocence. It begins quietly. Not with forgetting formulas or facts, but with something subtler. You stop recognizing nuance. Someone tells a joke. You miss the punchline. Someone shares grief. You nod politely, but your empathy is blunt. Not because you're cold, but because the threads that once tied you to complexity are loosening. Your thoughts, once layered and rich, are becoming surface level. The world begins to feel like a painting, flat, still, too colorful. You used to see depth in everything. Now, you're forgetting what depth even is. Next, your intuition fades. You once sensed moods in a room, saw meanings between words, read between the lines. Now everything is literal. A smile is just a smile. A pause is just a pause. A story is just a sequence of sentences. Subtext becomes noise. Irony becomes confusion. Symbolism becomes nonsense. You don't ask, what does this mean? You ask, what is this? And that's the shift. The moment when your inner voice stops being a teacher and becomes a student again. Emotions regress. You were once composed, balanced by years of emotional evolution. You felt things deeply, but without chaos. Now, anger flares, tears flow easily, you laugh too hard, then cry for no reason. The emotional filter, the one that took you decades to master, is uninstalling itself. You become reactive, impulsive, raw, not because you're childish, but because childhood is reclaiming you. You don't just forget the lessons, you forget the reason lessons matter, why patience matters, why silence heals, why solitude doesn't always mean loneliness. You used to be still with yourself. Now you're restless. You seek distraction. Bright colors, simple sounds, cartoons. You clap at jingles. You repeat words for no reason. You stare at shadows like they're miracles, not because you're amused, but because your mind is rewinding through awe. You're not wise. You're enchanted. You used to reflect. Now you react. You used to say, I need time to think. Now you say nothing. You just do. You once understood shame. Now you dance in public. You scream when you're hungry. You cry when your toy breaks, not with self-consciousness, but with freedom, because shame requires awareness of others, and you're losing that awareness, step by step, moment by moment, until the world becomes a stage you don't know you're standing on. You unlearn danger. You walk toward fire. You put objects in your mouth. You climb too high. You run without watching. Fear, once a guardian, becomes a stranger. You don't assess risk. You don't weigh consequences. You explore without foresight, not bravely, but blindly, because danger is a concept you haven't learned yet. And soon, you never will. Language dissolves. You once moved people with words. Now you stumble to name a spoon. You once told bedtime stories. Now you listen to them with wide eyes, not understanding the endings. Then you stop listening. Then you stop asking questions. Then you stop talking altogether. And what's left? Sound, murmurs, babble, gibberish, spoken in joy. Because words have returned to what they were before you understood their weight. Noise that feels like magic. Your body shrinks too. You trip. You wobble. Your steps shorten. Your muscles soften. You don't sit still because you're restless. You just don't know what stillness means anymore. You play with objects you once threw away. A cardboard box becomes a rocket. A spoon becomes a drumstick. Not because you imagine more, but because you've returned to a time when you didn't know what things were meant for. And so, Everything becomes anything. Your imagination isn't expanding. It's unbounding. Eventually, you are placed in a crib. You grip the bars. You stare at the ceiling. You smile at mobiles. Not because you're entertained, but because you've forgotten that there's more. You don't ask, what's next? You don't think, who am I? You don't worry, because worry is a language of the wise, and you are innocent again. But here's the twist. As wisdom fades, so does pain. You forget betrayal. You forget failure. You forget heartbreak. You don't cry because of what happened. You cry because you're tired, or hungry, or bored. That's the trade. You lose meaning, but also suffering. You lose insight, but also the weight of memory. And in that loss, you gain freedom. The final moments, you can no longer walk, then sit, then hold a bottle. You stop laughing, you stop crying, you stop trying, and in your mother's arms, you stare at her with blank, brilliant eyes. You don't recognize her, but you don't need to. You don't know what love is, but you feel warmth. You don't know the word for home, but you are home. And that's the end of your childhood. Not the moment you become someone, but the moment you return to no one, to stillness, to silence, to the beginning. By now, the world has grown too loud, too bright, too complicated. You're not shrinking in size anymore. You're shrinking in scope. The cities that once overwhelmed you are now just blocks of color and noise. Faces blur into soft shapes. Voices become vibrations. Objects have no names. You don't know what a sky is. You don't know what outside means. You are not retreating into childhood. You are retreating into pre-being. And the last stop is the womb, not as a destination, but as a cosmic return. Because in reverse time, the womb isn't just where you were formed. It's the universe collapsing in on itself. At first, you exist in the world like a dreamer. People speak to you, but their language is music, not meaning. Light touches your face, but you don't blink anymore. You smile. Not because something is funny, but because you're unraveling. Joy in real time. Then one day, you don't wake up in your crib because the crib no longer exists. It faded like everything else. The pillows, the blankets, the world, gone. Instead, there is warmth, a cocoon of silence, a gravity not of weight, but of return. You are being pulled inward, not physically, but metaphysically, pulled into something that isn't place or space or time. It's not your mother's body. It's not a room. It's a cosmic envelope, a tunnel back into the singularity, the womb, the source, the unknowable beginning. Here, time does not pass. It folds, it loops, it cradles you. You don't remember how you got here. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you means. Because identity is a scaffolding built from interaction. And here, there is nothing to interact with, only rhythm, a slow pulse, a beat like a distant drum, the pulse of existence breathing in reverse. You float, not through space, through possibility. You are not yet assigned a shape. You are not yet anchored in gravity. Your limbs do not stretch. Your lungs do not expand. You are not learning to breathe. You are unlearning that breathing was ever needed. The oxygen you once demanded, now given passively, silently, without hunger. You are sustained not by choice, but by the withdrawal of needing. You are no longer surviving. You are being unborn. Memories have disappeared. Language has unraveled. Emotions have evaporated. Now even thought vanishes. You do not think about tomorrow. You do not fear yesterday. You are the perfect present, a consciousness without content, not because you are stupid, because you are pure. Not innocent, not ignorant, just blank. And in that blankness, the universe wraps around you, not as threat, as womb. The heart you once had no longer beats by choice. It thumps in a rhythm older than biology. You are connected by threads not made of muscle or blood, but by something deeper, intention. The universe intends for you to return here, and so it pulls you back. You once stretched your legs in a nursery. Now you curl back into the fetal position. You once opened your eyes to sunlight. Now your eyelids seal again, rejecting the illusion of light. Not in fear, but because you have no use for sight anymore. Only being, only silence, only before. Outside, people mourn your regression. They call it sickness. They call it deterioration. They call it the end. But they don't know. They can't know. Because to you, this isn't death. It's the deepest meditation, the longest exhale, the place where all questions lose form, where even the idea of I has dissolved into something, non-dual. You don't know what love is. You are love. You don't ask for peace. You are peace. You have returned to the heartbeat of the cosmos, and it's quiet here, so impossibly quiet. You almost forget silence exists. There are no dreams in the womb, because dreams require story, and story requires time. But you are now before time, before logic, before language, before memory. You are consciousness reduced to a seed, an echo, a whisper that hasn't been spoken yet. You are potential without structure. And in that potential, you are limitless. But you don't know it, because knowing requires distance. And in the womb, there is no distance. There is no you and world. There is only one. Eventually, even the walls begin to vanish, not from destruction, but from absorption. You are rejoining the singularity, the start before the start, the moment before the moment, where time isn't measured, where size doesn't matter, where form is irrelevant, and in your final silent breath, if it could even be called that, you return fully to the source, not broken, not diminished, just unwritten again, and maybe, just maybe, the universe in its infinite stillness smiles back. Because you've made it home, because you have returned to where all stories begin, to where all light is born, to where the first spark still hums in waiting, and there, wrapped in the endless womb of existence, you rest. Not dead, not asleep, just before. So now you know. We imagine life as a straight road from birth to death. But what if that road looped backward? What if every goodbye was really a hello in reverse? What if every wrinkle was the echo of a smile you're about to forget? What if memories weren't collected, but released? We begin life crying, and maybe we end it in silence. But in between, there's this beautiful unraveling, a gentle peeling away of everything we thought we were, until all that's left is the spark that started it all, the spark before time, before thought, before you. Maybe that's not the end. Maybe that's the beginning. So tonight, if your mind is still wandering, let it drift backward. Not to what was, but to what never needed a reason to be. Sleep well, traveler. Your journey is still moving, even if it's in reverse. And when you dream, remember, you are always more than the direction you are heading. This is Mind Scramble. We'll meet again, somewhere between the pages of time, in whatever direction it unfolds. Good night.